Okay, so picture this. Way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there's this city, and it just defies all logic. I mean, it's an ancient metropolis that really shouldn't even be there. It was built with some kind of technology that still has modern engineers scratching their heads. So today, we're going to dive into the mystery of this impossible city, Nan Madol.
And this is the fundamental puzzle, right? Forget about building on solid ground. We're talking about a massive city built directly on top of a living coral reef. Just think about that for a second. How on earth could anyone possibly pull that off?
First, let's just get our bearings and appreciate how isolated this place is. Nan Madol is off the coast of Pohnpei, a really remote island in Micronesia, literally thousands of miles from any continent. People call it the Venice of the Pacific, but honestly, as you'll see, that comparison doesn't even begin to cover the mystery here. See, this wasn't a single chunk of land. The builders created almost 100 artificial islands right on the reef. Each one had its own purpose. You had your homes, temples, tombs, the whole shebang, and they were all connected by this amazing web of canals, making it the sprawling, water-based city that's just unlike anything else. And this design? It was absolutely crucial. This was the exclusive ceremonial and political hub for the ruling Saudalar dynasty, a way to physically separate the royals from everybody else on the main island. And the building blocks themselves? Whoa! The whole city is made from these naturally formed basalt columns. They're basically giant volcanic stone logs, and they were stacked and interlocked, kind of like a massive set of Lincoln logs, to build up the foundations and walls for all these man-made islands. All right, this is where the story goes from just being impressive to, well, seemingly impossible. The engineering that it must have taken to build Nan Madol presents this puzzle that, honestly, modern science still hasn't totally cracked. 750,000 tons. Let that sink in. That is the estimated total weight of the basalt rock they used to build this city. It's just a staggering amount of material, and it was all moved and placed with what had to be unbelievable precision. And, if that total weight isn't mind-boggling enough for you, think about this. Some of the individual stone logs weigh up to 50 tons. That's like trying to move a whole convoy of 8 large elephants. And there are thousands and thousands of these stones. So the big question is, how? How did they do it? The ancient Pohnpeian culture that built this place had no wheels, no pulleys, no cranes, no metal tools, nothing. We're talking about the most basic technology you can possibly imagine. And just to make this puzzle even harder, the quarry where they got the basalt, it was on the complete opposite side of the island. So every single one of those massive stones had to be hauled for miles across open ocean and over these really dangerous reefs just to get to the construction site. Which brings us to the core question, right? With all these limitations, how did this ancient civilization pull off what might actually be the largest maritime stone transport in all of human history? The explanations really fall into two very, very different camps. You've got legend, and you've got science. So first, let's look at the explanation that's been passed down for generations by the Pohnpeian people themselves. And it doesn't involve rafts or brute force. No, it involves magic. I mean, you couldn't get two more different ideas. On one hand, local legend talks about twin sorcerers, magic, and a flying dragon. On the other, science is suggesting massive rafts and really careful navigation. Let's start with the legend, because it's a great story. So, according to the island's oral history, these two sorcerer brothers, Olazopafa and Olasakafa, showed up looking for a place to build an altar. And the legend says they used their incredible magical powers to summon a great flying dragon, which then just lifted these huge stones and flew them into place. Simple as. Now, look, it's easy to just dismiss this as a myth. But for a project this big, with no other clear engineering answer, you gotta wonder, right? Could the flying dragon just be a metaphor? A way of describing some kind of lost technology that was so advanced that we just can't wrap our heads around it today? Okay. So now let's pivot to what modern science and archaeology have to say. Researchers have actually tried to reverse engineer how Nan Madol was built, but using only the methods they would have had back then. So, the main scientific theory involves these huge rafts, but just imagine the amount of work to build rafts that could hold 50 tons. Then you've got the almost impossible job of loading those stones without any modern gear. After that, they would have had to navigate these really unstable rafts, all the way around the island at high tide, before somehow, using just simple ramps or levers, stacking the logs into walls over 10 meters high. And even the researchers who came up with this theory admit it would have been a total logistical nightmare. Can you imagine trying to balance a 50-ton stone on a wooden raft out in the ocean swells and then placing it perfectly while you're standing in knee-deep water? And yet, whatever they did, it worked. These walls have survived Pacific typhoons for over 1,000 years.
So who were these master builders? And where did they all go? The city they left behind now stands as this silent, incredible monument to their genius, which might just be lost forever. The civilization behind this marvel was the Saudelar dynasty. They were this powerful line of rulers who were in charge of Pohnpei for more than 1,000 years. Construction started way back, maybe the 8th or 9th century, but their rule got more and more oppressive, and eventually they were overthrown by an invasion. The city just fell into decline, and today it's totally abandoned, slowly being taken back by the sea and the mangroves, a quiet monument to a people who mastered the ocean.
And that really is the legacy of Nan Madol. It's not just a bunch of ruins, it's a statement. It's a silent monument to a culture that did something absolutely extraordinary, mastering the ocean in ways that we, with all our modern tech, still can't quite figure out. So, that brings us right back to our big question. When you're faced with the sheer impossibility of Nan Madol, what do you think? Was it magic, passed down through the stories of generations? Or was it some kind of lost science of the sea that has just vanished from the world? For now, the mystery remains.